are the best budget decks in Yu-Gi-Oh right now.
My brother in Christ, there's a point in time when we all broke. The time is now.
Today, big dog, I'm going to be talking about the most popular and powerful budget Yu-Gi-Oh decks and rating them from top budget to buy some ramen instead. Let's go ahead and jump on in. Okay, big dog, so the criteria for this budget tier list is simple, my friend. I will be rating every single one of these budget strategies based on a few things. The first is, of course, how powerful the budget deck is into the meta. I would not want you to pick up a budget deck and get creamed every single play. I want you to get your bang for your buck. No diddy though. The next important thing about this budget tier list is that if you put more money in, will your deck get stronger? Some budget decks cap out exactly where they're at. It doesn't matter how much money you put into the strategy, you right there. While some other budget decks, hey, they may cost a little bit of money, but they cooking. And of course, I will be taking into consideration the statistics and data over the entire format. I got it all. I'm going to be able to explain all. Don't forget to let me know down below in the comment section what are some strategies I forgot. Let's go ahead and start off with Plunder Patrol. The best thing that I like about updating these budget tier lists is that you guys get to see the changes of these strategies as the format develops. Unfortunately for Plunder Patrol, its noodles are a better investment. My original take on Plunder Patrol is that it was a good deck that can thrive in a format where the elements are abundant. There's a ton of light darts and fire Yu-Gi-Oh decks, and Plunder Patrol has the ships to be able to back it up. But what doesn't ship out with this deck is Plunder Patrol is probably best as a Runick strategy right now. And unfortunately, you are better off investing your resources as a Runick strategy into some of the other strategies that I'm going to talk about. This is in no way a bad Yu-Gi-Oh deck, just not an economical situation. Ninjas. I can never do it, but Black Clone Jutsu. Ninjas are probably one of my favorite decks of all time. I mean, at least any deck that I get my invite with is in the Hall of Fame. Unfortunately, though, when it comes to building ninjas and getting noodles, I'm gonna take the chili kind. Don't judge me. Ninjas are incredibly fun, but unfortunately just outclassed by better Yu-Gi-Oh strategies. And while ninjas are incredibly cheap, for almost the same price, you can get Floowandereeze, which just so happens to be a top budget Yu-Gi-Oh deck. I have been looking at the statistics for Floowandereeze, and this deck averages about $80. You could legitimately top a YCS with an $80 Yu-Gi-Oh deck. That is completely crazy. The only disclaimer is that you will not have any friends because no one likes Floowandereeze players. I'm sorry. Don't kill the messenger, big dog. You should feel bad for me. I'm trying to divorce my wife because she plays Flu. Can I have that divorce for you playing Floowandereeze?
No.
Goblin Biker has been creeping up in events. I have noticed an influx of Goblin Biker players having success with the strategy. And I think it's simply because Yu-Gi-Oh has changed a little bit. Cards like Nibiru the Primal Being are not being played as much, and Goblin Biker can secretly get rid of threats by attaching them as material. I think that this strategy is borderline. It's really unfortunate that the support from Legacy of Destruction didn't do enough. It felt like a flop. But the good thing about this strategy is that anytime we get more rank 3 support, we get more Goblin Biker support. That's good. Dinomorphia has been topping almost as consistently as Floowandereeze. The only problem is that it hasn't been YCS events. I think one of the best things about Dinomorphia is that it does avoid a lot of the hand traps being played. It also helps to have a walking skill drain in Dinomorphia Rexstrom and being able to play the Solemn cards as well as Iron Thunder. Bro, we just negating everything today. I think Dinomorphia is a solid Yu-Gi-Oh choice. And the best thing about this strategy is that anytime you get trap cards that half your life points, it's okay. Day 420 of trying to get the 69 life points with Dinomorphia. Flame Swordsman. Now, I did make a poll about what Yu-Gi-Oh strategy should I play at the tournament. Now, I did make a poll about which Yu-Gi-Oh strategy should I play in my next tournament. Flame Swordsman was one of them. Now, I want you guys to know that I did not pick Flame Swordsman because I had some sauce. I picked it because we had to play tier 4 Yu-Gi-Oh decks. That pretty much just explains where Flame Swordsman sits at. Now, you can soup up Flame Swordsman by playing 20 hand traps cards like Catch Tira Finra, and the Triple Tactics cards. But at that point in time, it feels like you're putting makeup on a pig, and you can better serve that makeup somewhere else. Swordsoul. Swordsoul has been disappointing this season. It got Arch Nemesis Protos, but has not been dominating as well as Swordsoul players would love it. I think as a budget Yu-Gi-Oh deck, if you are a player that loves Synchro, it's one of the better ones. I'm gonna put it in borderline. The deck's still strong enough to be able to compete at a locals and even top at a regional level. But anything above that, I think you're pressing your luck. Now, Traptrix players are the reason why Europeans can only use solid mats and sleeves at events. Don't act like I don't know it was y'all, bro. The FBI told me. By the way, the FBI is knocking at your door right now. I think if you invested in Traptrix because you like the strategy and not the art, then you are probably a good pilot, and that's exactly what it's going to take to be able to play this Yu-Gi-Oh deck effectively. Traptrix's biggest weakness has always been going second, and even with the new Ragnaraka cards, it doesn't help in that particular field. To be honest, you're better off playing the Ragnaraka cards in a strategy we're going to talk about a little later. Now, Magispecters is a pendulum archetype, and I do have a video that I think you guys should check out that will be coming on later on this week in the discussion of pendulum archetypes. I think Konami has failed to give this deck meaningful support for it to be competitive for a long duration of time. Its best time to do that was when Phantom Nightmare gave Magispecter support, and we know that the deck has virtually zero tops since then. Yep, that's pretty much go ahead and get the noodles or a better investment, and to be honest with you, I think beef noodles are probably a better investment. Ew. On the flip side, there is a pendulum strategy that Konami has done well. Melodious. Melodious as a pure Yu-Gi-Oh strategy, I simply think is one of the best decks in the entire game, especially since you have a Psy-Frame Gear Gamma Light card and Herald of the Orange Light. Bro, you doing something that none of the other competitive Yu-Gi-Oh strategies can do, which is cook some effect monsters effectively. I'm gonna go ahead and put Melodious in a top budget, and I think currently right now, it is the best budget Yu-Gi-Oh deck, at least for what we have ranked right now. Virtual World. What I noticed about Virtual World players is that a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh players are doing well with it in spurts. This deck does have a few regional tops. Also, the entire core of Virtual World is less than $10. I think if you are a skilled pilot, you can take Virtual World to some far places, but I don't think if you invest more money into this strategy, it will be a better strategy. Unless Virtual World gets some more support to make it consistent, which I would watch out for, that's my ranking on it. Now we know two things are for sure. One, Sharks have actually been doing pretty decent. Two, Sharks get more support in roughly 8 months. The new support for Sharks is pretty dang good, and if I were you, I would be picking up my Shark cards. I think that this is a solid choice. Not only is it a good investment to play for a Yu-Gi-Oh deck right now, in the future, we know that this strategy gets a lot stronger. So I think solid choice is where it should be. Now as Black Atlas, the master of faster, the king of disaster, Red Dragon Archfiend is simply one of the best Dragon Yu-Gi-Oh decks in the game. The only unfortunate thing is that there really isn't a lot of other Dragon decks. Hey bro, if it's just you occupying that spot, you one of one. I think Red Dragon Archfiend at its lowest is borderline. It still has some really cool things that other decks don't. It has an Omni Negate in Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss, and it also can still wipe all of your opponent's cards with Scarred Red Dragon Archfiend. And players are starting to figure out that this deck is pretty malleable. I've seen a Centurion RDA build and a Horus RDA build. Combine that with Bestials, I don't know, you might be cooking up something. Blackwings also have the strength of Red Dragon Archfiend. The trade-off, while being a little less consistent, it has more powerful outcomes for boards. I think it's borderline. And one of the biggest reasons why these two decks are borderline right now is because they're 5Ds Yu-Gi-Oh strategies. Konami loves touching up on 5Ds. No dip. These strategies will probably get support as long as Konami still prints Yu-Gi-Oh cards, a solid Yu-Gi-Oh investment, and a really fun deck to play. Now, the Stepsisters did get significant reprints and Rarity Collection. The thing that I absolutely love is that this deck is now dirt cheap. It is now dirt cheap to justify it as a borderline Yu-Gi-Oh strategy. Unfortunately, there's nothing ridiculously special about Exosister. While it does still have unfair cards, unfair enough for it to top, it balances itself as a Yu-Gi-Oh strategy like these other ones. But for some strange reason, I don't think that Konami is done with supporting this Yu-Gi-Oh strategy. I think there's going to be some more on the horizon, especially considering that it just got reprinted. cards. Now, Unchained just so happens to be the other strategy that got reprinted in Legendary Collection. It is simply a top budget Yu-Gi-Oh deck. The only problem with Unchained is that it requires an actual brain to play. Unchained can simply be one of the most rewarding strategies for a new or returning Yu-Gi-Oh player. While it does have its complications and its learning curve, if you dedicate yourself to learning this strategy, you can pretty much teach yourself to learn any mid-range based Yu-Gi-Oh deck, which is cool. It also has some pretty significant tops and overall is a strong strategy. Dark World also has some tops. Hey, at least they got cookies in the Dark World. I think that those Dark World tops are more of a testament to a player being incredibly good, as well as taking advantage of the no presence of Droll and Lockbird. Still though, this deck is fairly gimmicky and I would not recommend for players to play this strategy in mass. It's not going to be effective. It will get more support though, because Konami loves these type of strategies. Marincess has been and probably will always be a solid choice Yu-Gi-Oh deck. It is the second best cyber strategy in the game, right behind Solomon Greats right now, but the contrast between those two strategies is that this strategy is actually affordable. Solomon Great has Raging Phoenix for roughly about $40 each and you need 3. Marincess does fit well into this Yu-Gi-Oh card game, being 1-card combos and being able to play a ton of hand traps, and with more money, it simply does get stronger, as you are allowed to cover up its weaknesses for going second. Now, heroes! Don't you just love heroes, guys? I do too. They're long due for some more support and are a solid choice Yu-Gi-Oh deck. These are not in order, by the way. Heroes have sneakily been topping here and there and is a fairly good budget Yu-Gi-Oh deck that can take on some of the most powerful strategies. Also, if you love Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, this deck is probably the best one of all of them. Because Crystal Beast, I hate to say it, but it ain't it. I really hate talking about Crystal Beast in this capacity right now, because it just feels like bullying at this time. This is another consecutive tier list of me saying that Crystal Beasts are not strong enough. They do not have enough powerful cards. It is a terrible investment if you buy this structure deck. It's really unfortunate though. Now moving on to Valmonica. They actually did get a top. Are they worth it? Takes a good pilot. I think even with the new support that we know about Valmonica, it's still not going to be a great Yu-Gi-Oh strategy. And you're probably better off saving some trouble, as most Traptrix players are playing the deck now, if you get what I'm saying. Gold Pride got more support and unfortunately made 0 waves. I still think it's better than Noodles or a better investment, but it's not a strong deck right now. Now, Raidraptor is in a peculiar spot. Since doing pretty well last format, Raidraptors has secured 0 tops in the new format, which is kind of crazy. The deck has completely disappeared off the face of the earth, and I think one of the bigger problems with Raidraptors is dealing with multiple hand traps. A skilled Raidraptor player can be able to pilot through that, but a non-skilled Raidraptor player is pretty much cooked. I think that Raidraptors are in takes a really good pilot, probably the strongest takes a really good pilot deck there is. And it's mainly because Raidraptors still have one of the most unfair Yu-Gi-Oh cards and Raidraptor Ultimate Rising Rebellion Falcon, the best rank 13 in the game. Memento, it topped the regional. Holy. Now Memento is doing decent right now and only gets better with Infinite Forbidden. I think because of this, it's safe to put Memento in borderline. The strategy is already doing decently well in the OCG with Infinite Forbidden and is doing decent in the TCG. It's worth the strategy to invest in. Lightsworn has really come alive over the past couple of weeks, getting a couple of key tops at regionals. And the best thing about Lightsworn is that it's so malleable, it can be played in so many different ways. I'm gonna say that it is a solid choice. I mean, everybody gangster until a Judgment Dragon drops on the field and blows everything up, and then they go for game, right? Rika is another one of those strategies that is a late bloomer. Pun intended. The Ragnaraka cards have really taken off for the Rika strategy, enabling it to be able to incorporate all of the powerful plant strategies: Arrow Mage, Sun Avalon, Rika, and Ragnaraka itself. I think that based off of strength alone, Rika is a solid Yu-Gi-Oh choice. This deck is fairly capable and decently busted, but when you put it in the right player's hands, it becomes even stronger. Shining Sarcophagus got a top. Holy. Shining Sarcophagus is an anti-meta deck that is good at going second. That's actually pretty cool. I don't have the cojones to put it at Noodles as a better investment. Yugi's deck might actually just take a good pilot. No guys, I am not huffing copium here. I think that the Shining Sarcophagus cards will not be completely terrible. And if you invest into them because they're so cheap, not only do you get a strategy that is memorable, you also have a strategy that's technically legacy support, so it may get even stronger. Purrely, hands down, is probably the second best budget strategy in the entirety of Yu-Gi-Oh! Keep in mind, this top row is the only ones that I'm rating in order. None of the other strategies are pretty much rated in order because it depends on what you like. But Purrely has been topping and winning multiple regionals and YCSs. It is solidified as a solid Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck. And lastly is Stun. Yep, gotta put Stun at top budget. I was not a believer that Runick Stun was a strategy that would be able to survive. Here we are now. Unfortunately though, just like Floowandereeze, if you're playing Runick Stun, you're probably gonna lose a lot of friends. Rescue Ace has also climbed the ranks as a pretty solid Yu-Gi-Oh! Strategy. I think that this is one of the more expensive budget Yu-Gi-Oh! Decks that you can start off with, but knowing that you really only need Snake Eyes Popular and Bonfires, all of the other Rescue Ace cards are extremely cheap. I mean, seriously, you can get an entire Rescue Ace core for $10. Crazy. The only problem that I will say with Rescue Ace is that unless Rescue Ace Airlifter comes off the list, there's almost no chance of you getting any support, so tread this deck with caution. Phantom Knights. I think Phantom Knights are... This one's tough. The reason why is because Phantom Knights have been successful sporadically, but never has been successful at an event that had a lot of people. I genuinely don't think that Noodles are a better investment, but I would say that it's significantly worse than the Takes a Good Pilot decks because of the cards that you need to invest into to make it better. If you buy those Horus Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards, you are probably better served at using them in a different deck. Even Red Dragon Archfiend or probably even Lightsworn are just simply better choices. But if you genuinely like Phantom Knight, Noodles are not a better investment. It's a Takes a Good Pilot. But do you see how it's kind of messed up here? And lastly is Evil Eye. This deck did really well at a large event, an LA regional. I didn't even know that this deck did that when I played it in my tier 4 tournament, but here we are. With only one regional top, it's hard to justify it as borderline. I see everything that could be good about Evil Eye as an Evil Eye player myself, but I'm just gonna put it in Takes a Really Good Pilot. This strategy can be ridiculously good in the right hands and can finish games incredibly fast. And that's all that I have for the top budget Yu-Gi-Oh! Decks. I want you guys to let me know what are some strategies that I miss. And of course, you can support the channel by checking out these videos and any of the videos that flashed on the top card, as well as commenting down below and sharing with a friend. I hope you're having an amazing day, and I'll catch you on the next video.